Welcome back to another episode of the On the Wagon podcast. If you're not familiar with us, we are a sobriety podcast with a shot of comedy. I tell some of my drinking war stories from the past. Let's see, what are we on? 14 years. So have a little comedy in that, but also with some self-help and let people know what I'm doing to stay sober, and hopefully that can help others. Before we get started in today's episode, which is going to be labeled Sunday Fundays, I've had my share of messy Sundays when it comes to drinking. So we're going to plug in some of those today and rehash those stories and get a few laughs out of that. But before we get going, I want to say, congratulations to a fellow podcast. It is the Sober Podcast. They reached their 1,000th episode today. So what the Sober Podcast does, is they record, AA speaker meetings all over the country, all over the world, actually. And it's been a huge help in my recovery. I've listened to it every day since I've been sober. So I'm on an awesome path with that. I think I'm at, 112 days now sober. Excellent podcast. So, even if you're not on the drinking problem but want to listen to what a speaking session is or a speaker meeting is, go ahead and download that podcast. It's pretty cool. Usually they do like a first 10-minute speaker where they'll recap their story, and then they'll have a main speaker for about 30 to 40 minutes who will also go over more of their story in depth. But today, let's dive into my own story, the Sunday Fundays. We are going to start with a Sunday where we have a local restaurant in town right on the water. Started out as every summer Sunday, went out the night before. So if all these stories always start with the night before drinking. So, I'd get up, take a shower, not feel that well, kind of hungry, kind of not, but we'd always try to go out and get some lunch, and then that turned into more drinking. Today, so for this day, we sat out on the river walk, had a bunch of, I think I was drinking Kugel's grapefruit shandies, I think they were, and one thing led to another. A couple friends joined, a couple were out the night before, a couple weren't. Had a lot of stories. Before you know it, this huge storm comes rolling in, right? Just, you could see it coming on the water. We're like, holy crap, like laughing, kind of waiting till the last second to go inside before the storm hits. But that didn't deter us for our drinking. We kept drinking inside, and now we're rolling up on dinner time. Sunday dinner time about 5 p.m. Being pretty loud, and some cuss words are getting thrown around, but just a bar talk, I should say. After that, we decided to go to another bar, where one of our big hangouts where they have extracurricular activities on Sundays, like a volleyball league, and darts, all kinds of stuff. Meet up with some girls that are out, friends of our girlfriends, and so now the pitchers of mimosas start getting. So we're talking pitchers of mimosas. So one of my buddies is spending quite a bit of money on this, and now we're all pretty drunk and pretty hammered. Three of us stay out, right? My girlfriend goes home to deal with some things, and I'm like, I'm staying out with my two other drinking buddies here for the day. So we stay at that bar for a while. Then we go to a really dive bar, which I never go in. We rarely ever go to, and that where it gets there's only a few guys in there drinking. We're starting to be real obnoxious in there. I don't remember much from this at all, but we end up finishing out there. Walk back down on Main Street then. At this time, I don't think we were kicked out of the bar, but there was darts being thrown around, just some, crude behavior. We're probably talking about 8:30, 9 o'clock here. Go back to the other bar, get mixed up with some kid, buy him a meal, buy him a drink, don't really know what happened there. One of the guys leaves and goes home. The other one, we go to another bar. Now we're talking 10:30. He leaves, and now I'm stuck, and I am extremely intoxicated. Phone, don't remember anything. Walk home from there, which is a good 2 to 3 mile walk home. Get home, it's not well at all. It's probably 1 in the morning. Something happened on the family side with my girlfriend, so she's like, it's not a good situation because here I'm extremely intoxicated. Fell down the stairs, getting upstairs. I sleep in the spare bedroom. I actually end up getting sick, which very rarely does. So that I got to clean up. So it's just a not a good Sunday to start. But again, just the drinking, the continuous drinking, the not eating. I didn't eat all day again, and that's a part of this disease. You gravitate to this allergy, and you just want more and more and more of it. Brutal hangover the next day. I'm pretty sure I didn't go to work that day. On Monday, I should say. The next Sunday I want to talk about was a Sunday where I usually played softball on Wednesday nights, right? So then they have the city tournament that comes about where you start playing, multiple nights a week. Well, we had went out on Saturday. I decided to go have a few drinks before the game. I think we played at 4:30 in the afternoon. I sat out at a local bar, my favorite spot, who has a tiki bar, sit outside, which also has the volleyball. Drank pretty heavily there. Missed the game altogether. Don't even go out to the ball diamond. Just stay there and drink. 6:30 comes around. Some of the teammates come down and start drinking. I'm exclusively heavily intoxicated again. I was supposed to have a get together at my house that night to watch a wrestling pay per view, SummerSlam. So I'm not leaving the bar. Jenny's trying to pull me out of the bar. Trying to go home. I'm causing a scene. One of my friends and his now wife, they talked me into like, oh, just get in the car. We'll head home. We'll hang out at your house. So they come hang out. We have a bunch of laughs. Embarrassing for Jenny, but just laughing and having a good time. I said I haven't ate for probably a day and a half now. I've just been drinking. I probably didn't eat dinner on Saturday night. They tried feeding me a peanut butter sandwich or giving me one, and I just, kind of tossed it on the ground. Just another embarrassing Sunday moment. But, all these things add up. And at the time, like the next day, you always feel remorse about it, even a couple days after. But then, once Thursday or Friday come around, you start feeling better. And that's where another thing with this disease, it's like you forget about what happened less than a week ago, and you're at it again doing, you're out at the bars again. You might not drink that next Sunday, but you were probably out on Saturday. So that's where, I had a big struggle controlling myself. And I would probably, how many times was probably still over the limit driving to a bar on Sunday, even though I didn't drive back home that night. I very well could have, Sunday there's people out, I could have got rear-ended, and then, the police are involved that way. And, that happened numerous times where I drove, the next day where I probably shouldn't have drove, where I was over the limit. So I'm very, thankful and grateful that I only got, for all those times that I drove drunk, I only got one OWI, and there was no accident. I didn't hurt anybody. And we'll get into my OWI story at a later episode. But that really made me feel like, blessed that, okay, not only that I didn't get in trouble, I didn't hurt anybody, right, or hurt somebody else, or hurt myself. It's very grateful that I know that at this point, very early on in my recovery, I'm not going to be intoxicated behind the wheel anymore. Perfect example, this last Saturday, we went to a wedding. It was a little tough. I had some urges to drink there just because it's that thing. Nobody was forcing it on me, of course, but, I had a couple coffees, which were good, but, but later in the night when the dancing started happening, I kind of got crabby with myself and irritated or irritable. I actually had to go, step outside for a second, just kind of get my wind and cool off, but, yeah, so that was interesting. But I got to drive. Jenny had a couple. She had a good time. I had a great time. It was an awesome wedding. But it was nice knowing that we're leaving at 10:30, 11 here. I'm driving home sober. Like I know that I'm gonna get Jenny home safely. I know we're gonna get home safely. So just a prime example of that. These next two ones I want to get into. So I call this the winter kickout, right? So this is when before I had Jenny, I lived in an awesome upper apartment at a cool apartment complex downtown with two of my best buddies. We went out the night before Saturday. off of something bad. I think we were drinking the night before. What was that? Bombay gin, which I don't know why we got Bombay and lemonades. It was cool with the Wiz Khalifa song that was out at the time. We went out to the bar. We don't remember anything that night. I know we remember that, but the next day I know the Packers played. I had a friend come over who doesn't drink too much, but we were all hyped up for the game. I was probably still drunk from the night before. I said, "Hey, let's rip a shot of this before we go out to our favorite sports bar for the games for the day." And he took a shot and and puked on our floor. So he had to clean that up. I ended up going out to the bar. My roommate who went out with us the night before didn't go out, of course, being responsible and stayed in. So that day was kind of a weird day. So went out for the Packer game. A couple of my family members came out for it. Casual drinking, but they knew I was out the night before. Ate some lunch there, I remember, but then they left, and I declined a ride home, which is always the biggest issue. After the Packer game, it's 2:33. Now I'm declining a ride home to my apartment. I always just say, well, I'll just walk home. It'd be good for me. That was always a good excuse. So I was out like, okay, I'll just walk home. So I ended up staying there till probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 o'clock. So this was winter time if you're in Wisconsin. It was sunny out that day, but very cold. Started mingling with another couple that was from, I don't know, outside of Oshkosh. But I don't really remember talking to them what it was about, but they're like, oh, let's go to another bar, but let's go to more of a towny bar. So I'm like, sure, I'll hop in the car, I'll show you, or hop in their truck. No idea who these people are. I'll show you one. It's not really out of town, but we call it a towny bar. So it's kind of off one of our main streets, but it's like a lot of bars in Wisconsin are out of houses. Like there's houses, they're built like houses, or they were a house at one time, and they gutted it out, and now it's a bar. So that's one of these bars that we go to. So now it's nighttime, right? Don't really remember what happened there. These people kind of know me at this bar, but kind of don't. They know I can get out of control at some points. The bartenders, that is. But at this bar, the bartenders are usually very drunk and intoxicated as it is anyways. Had a decent crowd in there from the Sunday games. Now we're crawling up to Sunday night football already. So now we're talking a lot of drinking. We're talking almost, 7 hours of drink. And I had drank the night before and probably stayed out till bar close. So now we're on 5 hours sleep, a lot of alcohol. This didn't start to go well. So now I knew some people at this bar. I was continuing to be served, of course. That's one thing I could say about Wisconsin. I've only personally known being cut off a couple times in my entire drinking career. I've seen people get cut off, but I don't remember me being cut off. I'm sure it might have happened more than I think, but I know I was still getting served at this bar. Ran into a few people that I knew, but not close with. Started talking with them. Was trying to bum a cigarette off this guy. I don't smoke. I don't know why. Sometimes I would smoke cigarettes when I drink, but I don't like smoking. I don't know why. It's just how it happens. Really was driving this guy nuts. You could tell that they were irritated. I think they actually worked a job where they were off on Mondays, so this was actually like a day where they could actually have a day of relax. Like this was their Saturday night or Friday night, so it was early in the night. So finally the bartender's like, hey, no more of this. Like, you're done with bothering these guys. And I ended up saying, some gibberish to the bartender. So he tosses me out. I knew the bouncer pretty well. So he's sitting out there with me. Now it's 8 o'clock at night probably. And it's like blowing, like snow cold. It's not snowing bad, but it's like, it's just not good. I can feel the wind burn. The next day I had wind burn on my face because you could actually walk across the main bridge here to get back to my apartment, which I used to do all the time. But this time I didn't. The bouncer ended up giving me a cigarette outside to calm down, and say, hey, we got to get you home. And I said, well, I just live right here. Like, now I moved. Like, this was pretty early on in my stages living downtown. I said, well, I'll just walk home. So I started walking home. Well, instead of walking home, I ended up at the bar across the street, right? So it's another bar across the street. Never been in this place before in my life. very intoxicated, but I was still served a beer. I always knew how to, like, when I got into a place, I could really, like, hold myself together, and so I could get another drink. I was always very good at that. So getting in there, start watching the Sunday night football game, run into somebody, a friend, one of my friend's brothers, who I know is also has a heard through the grapevine has a pretty heavy drinking problem, but at the time, whatever. So we start mingling there. I start texting a family member, like, this is where I'm at. The family member's like, why are you there? We need to get you home. Ends up picking me up there. They offered, like, hey, we got to get you something to eat. You haven't ate in a long time. Take me to Perkins, right? Well, this was a mistake. I know they were trying to do right, but I was so intoxicated, so drunk, and I always use the term talking stupid when I drink. That's what I was doing. Sit down. I recognized somebody that was doing schoolwork at Perkins. Was loud to them, didn't say anything bad, but you could tell, like, just embarrassing, like, when you think about it now, like, being really loud. There was people in there, it's Sunday night, a lot of people that are traveling back home, or truck drivers, or, whatever. So then I order this burger, a big burger, whatever. Don't take, like, 2 bites of it, because, like, when I'm drunk, really, really drunk, like, on a bender, I don't want to eat. It's different than college drunk, I should say. When we were drinking in college, there was nothing better than pizza at 2:30. Like, you ate that food, and I think that's why you didn't get such bad hangovers the next day. But when I was on my binges or benders, I would not eat, and I didn't want to eat. I didn't feel like eating. I wanted to drink till I passed out. So we're on the way out, right? They box up my food. They're gonna take me back to the apartment. See this heavy set guy, white beard. Of course, I proceed to call him Santa Claus, and my family members like, "What are you doing?" Like, and they're like dragging me out of this place now. So it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. Finally get back to my apartment. The one thing I could say though is, my family has been upset with me on a lot of occasions, but I can tell you one thing: they never gave up on me. They never, like, they were really good about it. Like, they always checked in the next day and said, you were way out of control last night, but we need to figure this out. There was always, like, things like that where I wish sometimes I would have wished, at some point, like, really put the axe down on it. But that, I wasn't a grown adult. Like, I'm talking 26 years old here. Like, this is ridiculous that my family members had to go pick me up from a local bar on a Sunday night. So, I never, this was me. This was on me with everything. So that was that night. I called it the winter kickout night. My final one I'm gonna do today was a summer Sunday. So is what happened here is Jenny and I had a wedding, I believe, where we both went out and were drinking. The next day we had to go back and get a car, one of our cars at one of the establishments, I don't know if it was from the reception hall or whatever. So 2 of my buddies text me and say, hey, we're out sitting on the patio. Why don't you come out and hang out with us on Sunday? Low key, wasn't forcing anything on me, but just like, hey, come sit at a bar. And it was a bar, but it's like, no, if you just want to come hang out, and we're just sitting in the sun and very casual. Well, Jenny's like, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. Like, let's just go home. And she's like, I don't feel good because she doesn't drink much. So she's like, I need to go home and rest and sleep. So she went home. I went out. Story comes to, I think I had 1 or 2 start feeling good. Well, then some other people came that we knew. And this is the same bar that I was kicked out of from the last story. But, having a good time, drinking a lot. Taking shots. Well, now we're all pretty messed up, and it's still sunny out. Probably, it's probably 5 o'clock. Bartender takes my keys. Said, you can come get your keys tomorrow, but I just don't, not that I don't trust you, but I don't want you taking the chance or ever. So, very responsible that way. But now I have no keys. So we decide to Uber to a bar that I never go to, which I've had a bad experience at once before where I was thrown out of. So I don't go there much. But we go there, and things turn really ugly here. That we're sitting at the corner bar. One of the guys is sleeping that I'm with. I don't remember being there. I'm talking stupid to people, like just bad. Because now Sundays in Wisconsin are people go out on Sundays. Like it's a normal day to drink, which it shouldn't be in my opinion. Like, but that it's people are out, whether it's a sport game or whether they're out on the boat in the summer or going to watch the Brewers. Like they go out for game, they go out for this kind of stuff. So people who can handle their alcohol are out actually enjoying their Sunday. Where I'm blackout drunk with two of my friends. We don't get kicked. We get kicked out basically. So we get in an Uber to go take me home, and then they lived a couple streets over. We're extremely. Extremely rude to the Uber driver. He's wearing suspenders. I keep calling instead of calling him by his name, I'm calling his name suspenders. So that was like the running joke for the few days after. It's like, oh my god, you keep. So then we're like, well, who put this on their Uber? Like, who bought the Uber account? Because then we're definitely getting a 0 star or 1 star on this ride. We make it back to my house. So now where I live, right across the street is one of these house bars which surprisingly I've been in one time, and this was this day. It's crazy, right? Like you literally, it's a house that's a bar. So we get home, we're messing around in my front yard, I don't run because I don't have keys to get in the house. Though the doors are locked. Jenny's, probably sleeping in our bedroom that's down. She probably didn't hear anything, and we didn't ring the doorbell. So I start banging on the back window for some reason, like the back patio window. So stupid. Like I very easily could have broke that. But then we decided to go across the street at the Stadium Bar, it's called, and across the street from me. And I get there, and I kind of have, like, the other two guys order beers, and I kind of have, like, this, like, thing come over me, like, I gotta get home. I don't feel that good. I gotta stop drinking. And I just kind of walked out of that bar, get in the house. This is Sunday. I remember this. How I remember this, I have no idea. We had our old couch at the time. I can remember it still being light out and me just passing out on the couch with all my clothes on, all my shoes on, but like one foot hanging off the couch on the table and like I remember, so like just pass out. Remember waking up at about 1 a.m. Felt extremely sick at the time, like, because I was just, this is 2 more nights of full drinking. I remember laying on the bed or the bathroom floor, like after I threw up because I felt so bad, like just so sick. Like, when you're really hungover, you get those sweats, and your body is trying to get rid of this poison, trying anyway, whether it's peeing a lot or getting sick or sweating. It's just like, it's just unbearable. I can't believe how many times that I did that. Hundreds and hundreds of horrible hangovers. But that's another thing. It all goes back to this disease. You did it because you love that feeling. You love that you had that allergy of getting more alcohol. So that next day was miserable, I remember. But yeah, it's just when you go back and look how good I'm feeling now, and like to do that to your body, and with that. It is a poison. Alcohol is a poison to your body. It wants to reject it. It wants to get rid of it. Can't believe with those feelings. But yeah, some funny times, times that I like to reflect on when I think about my drinking past. Like I said, like, the throwing out of the bars a couple times, like, so grateful that I didn't get, a arresting. Like I said, out of all these times that, could have been caught for public intoxication or who knows when you're in a blackout stage, to really only have one, thing on your record is kind of a miracle. So that's how I look at it, saying, okay, I was blessed to be in this spot and nothing extremely bad happened to me, criminal wise or physically or to physically somebody else. So those are my Sundays, the 4. I thought a lot about them this week, and I wanted to say it out loud, and now I have. Living those experiences have they've grown me as a person. How, these last 3.5 months now, like I can see the issues. I can see the things building up that I was on a bad path and still on that path at 32 years old, which, that path, some of these Sundays might not seem like, oh, you got drunk on a Sunday, big deal. Or you drank 2 straight days in a row, big deal. Well, yeah, I think it's not okay, but for in this state, at 21 to 23, that's not that out of the, that's pretty, not that unusual, I should say. I did a post on my Instagram. If you haven't followed us on Instagram or me on Instagram, the podcast, I posted a back-to-back picture. I follow this like celebrity, or it's not celebrity, sober rock stars it's called, and people kind of show a picture of when they were, drinking or using to what they look like today when they're sober. And, the picture I took was actually from my OWI night, which was, let's see, it was now 9 years ago. So I was younger looking, but you could just see how, I had, a chunkier face. You didn't look healthy. And, 9 years later, I look a lot better. But I was looking that up, like, okay, here I am. I live in the second drunkest, city or area in the country. And this was from Maxim magazine, the Nina Oshkosh area. And that doesn't include Appleton. Appleton's like 4 or 5. Like, there's so many cities in the Midwest, and especially in Wisconsin, that heavy drinking is crazy here, and it's easy to get roped into, and I very much so got roped into that. And at the time I realized that now I had an absolute alcohol problem. So yeah, that's my Sunday fun day. So we can cross that one off the list. The 4 big ones for me that I remember. There's so many of them that I probably don't even remember, or that bring back to me. So the next few episodes, we're working on some cool interviews with other people that have reached out to me on Instagram that want to tell their stories from all across the country, which I think is awesome. And they love the format of, having some humor in this. So we're going to do that. We're going to do some personal stuff. I'm going to kind of talk about how I'm fighting urges, how I had kind of a life of the party expectation after 21, where everybody was like, where are you this, where this? Like, I always felt that I might have to be drinking more than others, so I might talk about that a little bit. We're gonna have Jenny on the podcast of like living with an alcoholic or a person with a very heavy drinking problem, and also I'll kind of talk about when I tried to get sober, the 2 times, and how I failed at that, and the times that perspired out of that. Talk about that. So for the rest of today, enjoy the rest of your week. We are working with iTunes to get these all on iTunes as well. I have a very special event being planned for some local people as well, to get together for kind of a kickoff for this podcast. I've been very passionate about this. If you could tell by my voice that I love my other podcasts. This is D-Span. That's not going anywhere. We're doing some March Madness stuff coming up the next couple weeks. So that's going to be on my sports and entertainment side. But for my humor and sobriety side, this is where we're going to go, and we're going to keep going with this. Some exciting things happening. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you share this with others. Laugh a little bit when you're at the work day or on the weekend at some of my drunkenness stories, and put these out to some people who may need to hear it. So signing off here for the week. Take her easy, and we'll talk to you next week.